Best five-a-side player after John Walk.
So, yeah, that's the type of celebrity house I have, you see. Do you know what I mean? People, Ed Sheeran's coming around in a bit. He wants a bit of advice on his latest video. And as we both played number 17. I think he wants a word.
Hello and welcome to a Blue Monday TWTD collaboration show, an interview special with a man who committed 30 years of his life to bettering Ipswich Town Football Club. As a player, he made 280 ITFC appearances, scoring 48 goals, and a post-playing career working in numerous off-field roles supporting academy and local community. I'm Richard Woodard, and joining me is TWTD's Phil Ham, and we're delighted to welcome to the pod Mr. Simon Milton. Simon, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to what we can get into today.
Yeah, and mutual respect for the walls behind us as well. You have to say, lots of shirts going on behind you there for folk listening. I can see the 91-92 shirt there. We'll be talking plenty about that. So, yeah, lots to talk about. And Phil, good to see you back as well. Under the weather a little bit, but powering through, aren't you?
Yeah, indeed, powering through. I think that's the right way to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's crack straight on. I mean, the way Phil and I kind of talked about your route to Ipswich Town in the first place was kind of the kind of Tyrone Mings, the Jamie Vardy route from non-league through to Ipswich Town and then to the Premier League in really quick succession. Talk to us about that. It was was it Bobby Ferguson who spotted you first, and then John Duncan made the signing?
Yeah, that's right. I'd come on trial a couple of times. I mean, I'd got to know Bobby Ferguson. I'd got to know Charlie Woods. Brian Owen around that time, who were the sort of reserve and youth team managers. And I was playing I started my playing career at Thetford Rovers, then went to Thetford Town, and then went to Bury Town. And while I was at Bury Town, I was, being watched. And I didn't know that at the start. The manager didn't tell me. He told me once that Bobby Ferguson was in the crowd and I was crap. Do you know what I mean? The pressure was on, so I didn't play particularly well, but well enough, obviously, to get invited to play a couple of reserve games. And played some reserve games and then sat down with Bobby Ferguson, who liked what he saw and said, at the end, next season, I'm going to offer you a contract. He said so. And this was around sort of, I would think, about March time. No point signing to the end of the season, but was setting up a contract for the following year. And then they didn't, renew Bobby Ferguson's contract. So I was a bit in limbo. So I wrote to the club and got a lovely letter back from David Rose, the club secretary at the time, saying, I said I was in limbo. I'd been offered a contract. I'd like the opportunity to retrial under the new manager when he's appointed, that type of thing. And then John Duncan got the job, and luckily for me, I didn't have to retrial. He honoured the contract. He'd obviously spoke to Charlie Woods and spoke to Brian Owen and said, what do you think? And they were like, yeah, he's done enough. Give him a year. And I'm 23 at the time, so coming out of non-league football at 23, thinking you've missed the boat, and then joining Ipswich Town on a 1-year contract. So that was my path. It's nothing like the past they have now with the academies and hours and hours and hours of coaching. I just played hours and hours and hours of football, but not with professional coaches, with my mates and my brother and local teams and non-league teams and non-league youth teams. And, whether or not that makes you tougher or makes you more resilient, we can debate that all day. But this was a long time ago. The academies weren't what they were. They didn't have the structure in place to go and have teams at every age group and every level. So I enjoyed my non-league career. I enjoyed my youth career. And I'd probably played, I would think a couple of 100 games of men's football from the age of 17 to 23, which certainly put me in good stead.
Yeah, it's and that kind of that attitude, I guess, is possibly something as well that is part of what you've done since you've always kind of been driven and always had a kind of a view to the future as well. So was that clear back then what you wanted to achieve and have that vision, or was it just hard work and effort?
It's a bit of both. I mean, I'm certainly not frightened of hard work, and never have been. And I'll do whatever needs to be done, depending on whatever job I'm doing. But yeah, and I think I think you're obviously more mature at 23 than you are at 16, 17. And I think it's difficult for 16, 17-year-olds to break their way into the first team as well. It's no easy path. No matter how you get there, no matter how Jamie Vardy got there, or I got there, or someone like Kieran Dyer got there, coming right the way through the youth team and academies. There's no easy path. There's no shortcuts. No one gives you anything. You've got to earn the right to get in that club. You've got to earn the right to get in that team. You've got to earn the right to be picked every week. And you've got to, and when a manager change or coaches change, you've got to be, part of the ones that, or the players that he likes. And that's definitely about ability. But it's also about endeavour. It's also about attitude, and it's about character and personality. I think you have to, you have to show character, no matter what you're doing, and you have to be strong, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to have confidence. But I was certainly never ever the best footballer at Ipswich Town in all my years there. Was never the best player in the team. Never the most talented players. We'll talk about the 91, 92 team, and, there's far more talent in that team than me, but I obviously found a way to impress the manager, for him to pick me, and impress the coaches to involve me. And, if I was in the team or if I was out the team, I was still very much part of the team because of your character. And, you can, if you get left out of the team, you can sulk, and you can throw your toys out the pram, or you can put your head down and get on with it. And that's certainly one thing that I did.
Great stuff.
So we come to 91, 92 then. You're by that stage, you're established in the first team squad, aren't you? You've got 3-4 years maybe by that stage as a player with the club. John Lyall has come in, a manager with a great pedigree behind him. He'd been there for a year by the summer of 91. You go on a pre-season tour of Finland, but there's few expectations, are there, that this is going to be the season that it becomes?
It's amazing, really. There wasn't any expectation whatsoever. We are a team in Division 2, which is obviously the equivalent of the Championship now. I had obviously coming on here, I thought I'd better do a bit of research. So pre-season wasn't great. Let's be fair. So it just we had a really good squad of characters. Do you know what I mean? We had young players coming through. We had senior players. And it, for whatever reason, it just worked. And I think recently, or many times, when I talk about that team, did we have the best squad? Did we have the most money? Did we have the biggest attendances at that time? You'd have to say no to all of those. But one thing we did have is we had the best manager in the league, without a shadow of a doubt. We had the best manager who worked out how to get the best out of each and every one of us, would pick teams home and away, would make changes. Training was always great. Training was always tough, though. You needed to train hard to get in his team. And, if we were playing a team that was a physical team, all week training would be physical. So the testament to John Lyall and the work that he did. Sorry, I've got a guest come. The work that he did, you're going to love this. The work that John did with the team, and each individual player made us the team that we were. So the sum of the parts was obviously greater. Oi, come here.
Yeah, I know. I heard.
Look.
Oh, look, it's the man.
He just turns up. You see, just comes round. Hey, I didn't turn up at his podcast. Do you know what I mean?
I already get 100 views from mine. You'll get about 10,000, you right?
Oh, yes,
best five-a-side player after John Walk.
So, that's the type of celebrity house I have, you see. Do you know what I mean? People, Ed Sheeran's coming around in a bit. He wants a bit of advice on his latest video. And as we both played number 17. I think he wants a word.
We were talking about training, I think, when Phil?
Yeah, I think I was talking about John and his training methods, and every time if I speak about John Lyall to the group of players and anybody involved in Ipswich at that time, they completely understand how good he was. But also, if I ever speak to a West Ham fan about John Lyall, they go all gooey-eyed. It's like talking to an Ipswich fan about Bobby Robson. That's how I liken it. They hold him in such high esteem, and rightly so. So we were obviously very, very lucky to have him as our manager at that time, and the job that he did, and no stone unturned, very smart, very, talked football all day long, and called on experiences of, the players that he'd worked with. So, yeah, he's just an exceptional man, an exceptional manager. And, I've had a quick look at the games and the fixtures, and, even at the start, by no means. I was also looking at the crowds. Do you know what I mean? Our first home game at Port Vale, there was 8,937 people there. And our last game against Brighton and Hove Albion, there's 26,803 people there. So we gathered some people along the way. But no, there probably wasn't a lot of pressure on us, though, and expectation. So it was just a team of going out and, let's see where we can get to.
I mean, that's the thing. I think it was very much the post-Robson era still, wasn't it? That the team had obviously got relegated in the years after Robson, and things had gone. I think the club was pretty flat, hasn't it? Wasn't it really through that era? The John Duncan era never really came to much, and Bobby Ferguson obviously got us in the playoffs once, but the club really needed a boost at that point, didn't it? And you, as you say, crowds of 8,000 at the start of the season. It was, I think it brought a lot of people back to the club that had drifted away. I was among those, I'm that era, that sort of, when we got relegated, I was 13, 14, I suppose, maybe 15. And I was sort of 20-ish when this season came around. And I think it brought lots and lots of people back to the club. Is that how it kind of felt to you as a player at the time?
Yeah. I think loads of people, your age and above, there's probably a 15-year window of people, probably between 45 and 60, who think that was their favourite time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you have periods in your life, don't you? If you're between 25 and 30 when we win the playoffs at Wembley under George Burley in 2000, that's your time. And if you're older in that generation, you have your time, and you just hope that during your time, that period where you're going regularly, you're understanding football, you're really enjoying it, the team delivers something, don't you? Do you know what I mean? And that's why, I meet lots and lots of people who still think about that 91-92 team as their favourite team, because they were on a journey, they went to loads of games, home and away, they were part of it, and obviously at the same time as getting promoted, the Premier League started. So it was, if ever there was a time to get promoted, it was then.
So you started off, you went Bristol Rovers away, wasn't it? First game away. 3-0 up. Then you discover Marcus Stewart.
Yeah. Funny cross, yeah.
Marcus Stewart, you discover an 18-year-old Marcus Stewart and Devon White, who only ever scored goals against Ipswich Town, from as far as I can remember. But how did that feel first day of that season then?
It's just weird when you think about it. I've been in some 3-0 ups, and I've been 3-0 down. I think Barnsley away. I just think there's opportunities, and sometimes I look at the teams and there's not much between them. And so when you're in your spell and you score or you dominate, it's very, very rarely that you dominate a game for 90 minutes. They're always going to have a spell. They've got decent players, and, like you said, Marcus Stewart, Devon White was a giant of a man who just had something over us. So, you're thinking you're 3-0 up, what a great start to the season, and then you're coming away thinking it's like, the end of the world. We've conceded 3, and we got half hour in the dressing room with John Lyall afterwards telling us what went wrong. But he did love a meeting. But it's part and parcel of the game. Nothing, when I look at their games now, and I look at managers, what managers do, because when you're a player, first of all, you know, on a Saturday, or if he names the team on a Friday, am I playing? It's all about you. Am I playing? And if you're playing, great. If you're not playing, am I on the bench? And going back to, you know, this year, it had been 2 subs at that stage. When I joined in 1987, it was the first time they went from 1 sub to 2. So, and then they went, well, obviously people were having 2 subs and a goalkeeper, and it grew and it grew and it grew. But, you know, as a player, you're very selfish because you're thinking, am I playing or am I sub? How am I going to be involved? And if you're left out, you're disappointed to be left out. Whereas the manager is thinking about every single player and also the opposition, what their strengths are, how strong they are on a particular side. And, you know, there's information that managers go through that I think when you're playing, you really don't understand until you get older and more experienced. You understand his job so much more. But yeah, that wasn't a great start, being 3-0 up and then throwing it away basically to get to 3-3. But that's life.
But then you win the next 3. 2-1 at home to Port Vale, 2-1 at home to Middlesbrough, 2-1 away at Blackburn.
Yeah, and if we look at people scoring the goals at that time, you know, Dazelle and Kiwomya were on their day, you know, the best combination of 2 strikers in the league at that time, on their day. And we just kept pushing them to have their day. And they're scoring goals straight away. And Paul Goddard came into the team. I think when Jason was scoring at that point, you know, he'd have been scoring from midfield, whereas Paul Goddard had played in that number 10 role. Very clever player. Chris loved playing with him because he'd get in holes and then Chris could sort of run off him. So all of a sudden, some partnerships were forming. But yeah, that's obviously that's a great start to then win the next 3. Then I suppose we've got to go to Swindon.
Yeah, I was going to mention Swindon with was that Swindon with Glenn Hoddle at that stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, who was just outstanding, absolutely outstanding, and frightening to see. You know, I'm not sure how old he was then, but he certainly wasn't in his prime. But he looked a fantastic player because he was player manager at that stage, I think. So, you know, you're coming across, and he played a different way at Swindon at that time. They were very much, he was like the free sweeper, the free man at the back, and he was like a quarterback, and he got them playing. I think Mickey Hazard had gone there with him as well at some stage as well. So, you know, they were a good team. But as you work your way through, looking at the results and stuff like that, it just, you know, you never know. If you took the scores out and tried to guess the games that we won and lost, you'd have no chance, absolutely no chance. Because then you start going through and looking at the games that we won and the games that we lost. It's just all part and parcel, and just got to keep getting up for the next game, and making all those plans and preparation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a couple of players that sort of featured early in that season. David Lowe, you talk about strikers. David Lowe was there for the early part of the season, but then moved on. And Brian Gale started off in the squad before being sold for I think David John Lyall thought he got a really decent. He got an offer he couldn't refuse for Brian Gale, didn't he? At that point from Sheffield United, I think. Yeah,
I think. Gailey was a good player. Gailey was the most vocal centre half I ever played in front of. So he was really, really vocal. Really, if you're playing in midfield, you know, and you're making tackles, you can hear him behind you. He's telling you to make tackles, telling you to get tight. You know, we had David Linnigan, who played a lot of games that year, and then Johnny Walk when he came, and he played a lot of games of that. But they weren't as vocal as Gailey. Gailey was a big character as well. But yeah, to lose him to Sheffield United for like a big fee. You know, John's obviously worked it out and decided it was a good move for the club, and off he goes. And David Lowe, when I signed in 1987, David Lowe signed, and I thought he was a great player. I thought he was technically good striker of the ball, good runner, and at times though, you know, I think they thought that he wasn't maybe strong enough up front. Do you know what I mean? And but I thought he was a good player, good career. Still see him now when I bumped into him when we've had Blackburn over the years and all that. So it's always good to see. But yeah, so he wasn't frightened to make changes as well.
And of course, the big signing at that point was, well, not really a signing. He sort of was training with you, wasn't he, John Walk, while he was looking for another club, and you have short centre halves. I think Eddie Youds came in, I think, as the replacement for Brian Gale, but immediately got injured. And then Mr. John Walk, third spell, called upon to play at the centre half, became one of the stars of the season, didn't he?
It's just a dream. Honestly, when John came in, when he came back, it was like, oh my God, Walkie's coming back. Do you know what I mean? And talk about a player with legendary status. And he was just he knew the game inside out, but he also knew his body inside out. So he knows he could play 90 minutes twice a week, but he knew that he couldn't train 5 times a week and play 90 minutes twice a week. And that became apparent. He'd never trained. He'd never trained on a Monday. We called him Bob Geldof because he hated Mondays. He never trained. Honestly, we'd all be running around like mad, and Walkie would be having a massage and a cup of tea, but he knew his body, and John Lyall used him really well. You know what you're like, and he was up for games. But even then, when he came back and played centre half most of the time, he was still the best finisher I have ever seen in my life. Like left foot, right foot, header, no matter what. His heading ability was just off the charts. And he came in and he's not an outgoing character, is he? He's not a big, he's not a big character. He's not a big personality. He just plays, but he had total respect from the dressing room as he came in. Do you know what I mean? And came back. And he was a massive, massive signing for us, following Brian Gale going. And and then once he got in the team, that was it.
Yeah, but you had a frustrating October. One sort of quirk that I hadn't remembered. You went off to Holland for a Franz Tysons testimonial. I don't think that'd happen in the season now, would it?
No, and honestly, Franz was about 65 at the time, and he embarrassed the life out of all of us. Honestly, his Dutch team, we went over, and I remember Walkie saying, "Listen, if Franz has got the ball, let him have it, because you can't get it off him." And it was just like that. So yeah, I mean, things like that are an absolute pleasure to be in. When you look back now and you say, "Well, I played in, Franz Tysons testimonial out," and Franz, obviously, he was over recently, and he's an absolute legend. But yeah, I'm not sure you'd do that if you were a team in the Championship, preparing to get promoted, heading off to Holland for a testimonial. I'm not sure, probably end of the season, but we did, and it was just a pleasure to play against Franz's team, because it was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and so you're in that sort of difficult October. You sort of draw 5 in a row.
Just looking now,
and actually, it's looking at it's actually sort of 9 games without a win at one stage. But I think there's a League Cup game in there as well. But so you started off the season, then you've gone this sort of tricky run.
Yeah,
including a defeat to Cambridge United, who were the local. Obviously, we can talk a bit about your history with local rivals, because famously the scorer of a goal against Norwich City, but it was actually Cambridge United who were the local rivals during that season.
Well, if you think about the Cambridge United team at that time, Claridge and Dublin, and they were a big, strong team, and John Beck had got them going, hadn't he? Do you know what I mean? And they were, I remember John Taylor, another centre forward who played for them. He came out of non-league football, and they were just the team that nobody wanted to play against. And yeah, we lost at home. I just see massive crowd, 20,000 people there, and we lost at home. And we lost to Sunderland the week before. So yeah, we didn't. It's not like we was plain sailing for the whole season. But yeah, Cambridge were a strong side then. Very strong side. They worked really hard, and they were there or thereabouts around the playoffs all season. And it was John Beck had worked out, how to get a group of big lads together, do you know what I mean? And get the ball forward quickly and play more of a direct style that worked for them. and was getting some fantastic results. I think we lost 3 on the trot, didn't we?
He lost 3 on a trot there. Sunderland, Cambridge, and then Derby beat you at the baseball ground. Would have been back then, wouldn't it? Did you Cambridge? All those things are famous stories about the corners of the pitches being, really long grass in the corner of the pitches and all those kind of things.
Salt in the tea.
Yeah.
Was
there all that?
And the changing room at Cambridge was tiny. I don't even know if it's changed now. Do you know what I mean? It was, and some place you go, the floor, it's almost like they would throw buckets of water on the floor before you get in. And if you come to Ipswich, everything's lovely. You go to Cambridge, the floor's wet. You take your shoe off to put your sock on, and your socks. Do you know what I mean? And it might not sound like anything major. Just get on with it. But if you don't get on with it, all these things can, to play with your head. And there'll be like 3 lights in there, and only 1 bulb works. So yeah, there was some games around that time. Do you know what I mean? And you couldn't complain about the games unless you beat them. You can't use any excuses. But if you look at the teams, you've said you've got like teams like Port Vale in there and teams like Cambridge United. And then you've got teams like Brighton and Charlton and Leicester and Sunderland and Derby and Blackburn Rovers. So, it was a strong league at that time. Portsmouth were always a good team as well.
Yeah, and the big name in the division that year was, of course, Blackburn Rovers, because Jack Walker had come in. He brought Kenny Dalglish in, and I think they really they assembled that team over the first half of that season, didn't they? And they kind of emerged as the front runners. And you played them at Christmas at Portman Road and beat them 2-1.
That's right. I remember Jason scoring. But Blackburn Rovers at that time, that was the first time really that anybody had used big money to buy success. Jack Walker's money was assembling the team, and that's if you think about what they achieved, a lot of it, and the players that went there, they went there for a reason. There was big money there, big budgets, and this was obviously they probably had the biggest budget in the league at that time, but not like 8 times ours or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? It would have just been more that they could have. And then later on in life, you look at the top teams now and the budgets that they have are far and away bigger than everybody else. But yeah, Jack Walker, appointed the right people, got the right managers in, and obviously had the money to make them successful. But yeah, that was a big game. Jason scoring the winner there. I mean, I was just looking through, if you look through the season, we had goals in the team. We had Kiwami Underzel scoring regularly. We had Goddard scoring. Steve Whitten scored. I was scoring. Mickey Stockwell was scoring. And we had like people like Neil Thompson who would score with his sledgehammer left foot. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's what you need. You can't just rely on your strikers scoring the goals. You want your strikers to score regularly, but other people, having the opportunity to chip in with goals, because that's the game's all about goals. And even now we're all talking about the Oxford game that we just got beat, but if we were 2 or 3 up at that stage, then the last goal's a consolation. It's not it's not a knife through the heart, is it? It's just something you're upset about. And you just scoring goals is absolutely crucial when you look through your team.
Even you didn't mention obviously Walkie again. Gavin Johnson scoring goals from left midfield as well. That was a season he really came to. I think he kind of really made his name that year, didn't he?
Oh yeah, and recently, obviously, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, which was a moment in his life that I don't think he'll ever forget. I've never seen anybody so overcome with emotion by getting something so good. But he was a good player. He was so unlucky with some major injuries early in his career. But yeah, this season he was excellent. He could score, he could run, he could tackle, he could defend, and during the course of the season he scored some very, very important goals.
Sort of December time, and you're on a really good run at that point. Do you then start to think we might be in with a chance here?
Yeah, I'm not sure when you actually start thinking we could, it's certainly not Christmas, January time. You start to get through, and then all of a sudden it just starts to happen. Do you know what I mean? And you start believing, and then the manager and the coaching staff are preparing you, and it just goes up a notch. Do you know what I mean? Because you're in and around the top, and he's much more aware than we are, I would think, at this time, the manager, that there's something going on here, that if we keep this going, we've got a chance. But the manager's job is maybe not to put too much pressure on you and say, look, we've got to win this, we've got to, let's just go out and keep doing what we're doing and keep. I think we had a pretty settled side for a while. Do you know what I mean? There was people coming in and out. There was a time, I think, Romeo Zondervan was an absolute Rolls Royce of a player, but he got injured for a period, and Steve Palmer came in, and Steve Palmer did a great job. I remember playing central midfield with him. He was strong and he just worked hard, and he was a good addition for people to come in at that time. And Steve, the Steve Whitten role in that team was just amazing. Everybody talks about anyone hits a diagonal, it's Thompson to Whitten nowadays, isn't it? Because it worked. And Steve Whitten had a great touch, great feet, could cross it, but great in the air. Do you know what I mean? So everything. So it was certainly something that was identified by the manager, and bearing in mind we had a left back who could hit it 70 yards, that helped. But yeah, it was all part of it. And, we did have a settled team. I would think that Mickey Stockwell played most games at right back, and Tomo left back, and Linney and Walkie, and the Zell and Kiwamia, who were regularly playing, and they were good. They were good, great mates off the field, and great throw together when they played.
There's so many players that are versatile. I mean, you obviously played wide. You played in the middle. Mickey Stockwell played fullback or in midfield. Gavin Johnson played fullback or in midfield. Whitten played either up front. You know what I mean? Everyone. Yeah. Had more than one role, really. Jason obviously played in midfield and then up front as well.
I think, I think, as I said before, you just want to get in a team. So I would play anywhere across the midfield. A funny story with John Lyall, because if I played wide, I think we played Chelsea in the cup and lost on penalties. And I remember talking to you. The thing about John Lyall, you could always go and see him. And I remember talking to him about my performance at Chelsea, and because in the week after training, he said, "I thought you played really well the other night," and I'm thinking, I don't actually think I did anything. Do you know what I mean? I was playing right midfield at Stamford Bridge, running up and down, not creating, not scoring. I scored my penalty, but we lost. But then he started to explain to me why he thought I'd played well. And, that was what he's saying. He said, well, I put you over that side. He said, because Chelsea's left back is an up and coming, everybody's raving about this left back at Chelsea. He's a really young lad who's going to come through and be a really good player. And I thought, if I put you there, I know you won't let him have a minute, and he'll run up and down and you'll run with him the whole way. And it was Graham Lasso. Yeah. And I didn't even think about that. See, that's why the managers are so smart. I didn't even think about that. And another time when I went to see him, just saying I had played in right midfield, left midfield, central midfield, I went to see him after a particular game saying, John, I think I should play in the central midfield. I said, I think I'm more involved in the game. Because sometimes when you're playing wide, you're up and down. If the ball doesn't come out, you're not as involved. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, if I can get on the ball more, I'm going to. So he said, listen, it's a really good point. He said, but I'm going to have a look at some previous games, and then I'll, come back to me. So I went back to him, and he said, look, I've just analysed the last 40 games. He said, you've played 15 one side, 15 the other, 10 in the middle. He said, you've scored 5 goals from one side, 3 from the other. You played the middle. He goes, you ain't even had a shot. And I went, thank you very much, and went out. Do you know what I mean? and that was him going back over the games, with some notes. That's not like what they got now. You can imagine. But, you know, because once again, when you're playing, it's about, you know, you're worried about your game. You're worried about what you've done. And like even strikers, let's not pretend that if we win 4-0 and our top striker doesn't score, he's glad we've won, but he's still not very happy, is he? Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, if he's not scoring, that's what everybody, you know, that's his job. So we all think about our jobs in a smaller scale, and the manager obviously is always thinking about the bigger picture. So he was very good at that, and I can imagine him doing that with every single one of us. People going to see him at any time, going up in his office, and, you know, having conversations with him about certain things. He was, you know, he loved it. He never went home.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just super keen to get in because this is when I start watching. So I've been quiet so far because I've not seen a kick. But my first game is Liverpool in the FA Cup. 0-0 Portman Road, really windy day. And I'm just looking at the form there between January through to March, where there's 6 league wins in a row. And I just wonder how much of that FA Cup run was breeding confidence into your league form as well.
It was massive. It was my first game at Anfield, and probably the same for so many. We mentioned Gavin because, you know, the goal he scored, Jason scored, and it's just a moment in time. And the first game was a horrible game. It was 0-0. It was live on Sky. It was windy and, you know, just but then the replay by going up there, and we got Walkie in the team as well, who's a legend. You know what I mean? And it's almost like you're going there in a good run of form, thinking we've got nothing to lose here. You know, let's go and have a right go. And John had obviously picked a team that he thought was going to be the best, and, you know, they got some quality in their team at that time. Do you know what I mean? And just playing at Anfield. And so, yeah, without doubt, the confidence that taking them to extra time and losing 3-2 to a skinny little Steve McManaman goal, do you know what I mean? Was hard to take, but yeah, it certainly gave us confidence. And off we went, you know, and we gained a lot of fans that time, you know, at that stage, to go up there and do that. And, you know, and that's what I was talking about. Gavin Johnson the other day, when he scored that goal, it's just like a moment in time. Everybody went absolutely crazy, you know, on the field. Even Jason Dezelle, when he scored, I was running towards Jason when he scored, and he had a shot and it got a ricochet, and then he put the rebound in, then he's turned around and I was running towards him and he's running this way. And he went, "Am I dreaming?" It's just like, oh my God, you think what it means, you know, to do that, just to be involved in a game like that. And the thousands that we took up there, you know, maybe they started to believe a little bit more in this team. But yeah, you know, cup runs and games like that don't get in the way of league form. They help you.
It's momentum. And I guess the confidence is there because you've tested yourself against one of the best in the tier above. So there's no more fear as to what happens at the end of the season if things go well as well. No,
absolutely. And again, it was a decent team. It was a settled side, and like you said, we went on a really good run. But you know, even, you know, I'm just looking. We beat Portsmouth 5-2, but you know, there's a couple of we beat Bristol Rovers at home 1-0, and then I scored that one, and then Tranmere away. I remember trying to keep up with Kiwami as he raced away. Do you know what I mean? And just scoring from like a yard on the far post, and John, you know, John Lyall going to me, you know, just making that run, and I'm saying, you know, basically all I was trying to do was see if I could get anywhere near it, because I know Chris is going to outrun everyone, and just trying to. But so we were resilient. Do you know what I mean? We were a tough team as well, and a few 1-0s along the way to get to, you know, to try to get to where we were. But yeah, good times. And as I said, Leicester City, Watford, Derby, Barnsley. Do you know what I mean? Good teams, good battles.
I think there was a battle with Cambridge as well.
Cambridge. Yeah, I remember going to Cambridge. Obviously, we drew 1-1. I scored in that game. They weren't going anywhere, Cambridge. They were still flying, weren't they? They were desperate to ruin everybody's party. But, I mean, you'd see we we beat Derby at home, then Barnsley at home, and Jason got 2, then Chris got 2, and then Phil Whelan got a chance to get in the team, which was just, we've signed him, and very quick, very strong, waiting for a chance. David Linnigan gets injured, in he comes and scores 2 in 2. One at Southend. I mean, the Southend away game was just amazing when Tomo scored. And again, Whelan scores 2 in 2. You just, not for 1 minute did we ever think that was going to happen, but it did. But the hard part was getting over the line. Yeah.
Well, the Southend game, I think at that point, because Tomo scored a last-minute goal, didn't he, to win that? Yeah. I think a lot of fans started to. We're there almost at that point. You start to and then there's the Newcastle match as well, which was a terrific game, wasn't it? And I think that was the start of the resurgence of Newcastle at that point, wasn't it? I think Keegan had come in at that point, and they were starting to build the team that then got. I think they went up the following year, didn't they?
They did. They were strong. But yeah, like you said, we won 5 on the trot. Didn't we? We Derby, Barnsley, Southend, Wolves, and Newcastle 5 on the trot, and then all of a sudden, everybody thinks we've made it, and we lose 2. It's like, oh wow, do you know what I mean? And it is nervy. And then
So what did you say to you at that point then, when it's all getting a bit nervy?
It's just it's down to the manager and the group. You can't have meeting after meeting after meeting. You can't dwell too much. If those 2 defeats were spread in between the 5 wins, it wouldn't have been as drastic, would it? But because obviously Sunderland and Bristol both away, and then we're at home against Grimsby, and you're thinking, well, there's 3 points there. Do you know what I mean? But life's not like that, and maybe a bit nervy. But there's 22,300 there for the Grimsby game, so you can imagine. Those Grimsby players must be thinking, let's spoil this party. Let's see what we can do. And yeah, it looks like an absolute nothing game.
Well, I remember it was. I think they were in relegation zone, weren't they? I think Grimsby.
Yeah, without doubt, they would have been. Yeah,
and Jason hit the post right at the end, if I remember rightly. I think, and it worked, but it was exactly that sort of game where it never quite happens, and there's that palpable nervousness around the terraces and on the pitch. We all knew that winning that night would have done it, wouldn't it?
I know.
So anyway, okay, so we don't win that game, which is a Tuesday night, I think, wasn't it? And Oxford on the Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because so many people went to Oxford away, and everybody talks about Oxford away because they're thinking, this is the day. If this could be the day before you go. So everybody goes to Oxford away, and it's not like Oxford is now, is it? You mentioned it was much more.
They got 3 stars and they had about 7 at that point, didn't they?
But, and obviously Jim Majorton scores for them, doesn't he? Do you know what I mean? So, just again, people paths that cross. But again, Gavin Johnson, another very, very important goal. The goal at Anfield and then the goal at Oxford, that gets us over the line, and the celebrations afterwards, in that. Because I think Oxford, getting a point at Oxford, that was us guaranteed promotion, wasn't it? I think it was the following.
You won the title.
The title was on the pitch, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
We won the title, Oxford.
Yeah, and I remember because it was obviously very. I can remember kind of the radio. I was listening to it on the radio because I wasn't. I was at university at the time, and the radio staff were doing the maths. And trying to work out whether we were there, and we were there. So you all carried off the pitch the ground.
Yeah, straight back from Oxford into Alan Brazil's pub, I think it was, in Ipswich, the Blackadder. But yeah, great memories of the game. The game, there is no easy games, no matter what. It may sound like it, and the last game of the season looks like an easy, but there is no easy games. But yeah, when I think it takes a while to get an understanding of what you've actually achieved. As a group as a team, as individuals. Yes, you're celebrating the win and all that, but sometimes you need a quieter moment to actually realise what you've just achieved and what it means for you personally to be a player in that team, but also what it means because you've created some history within a football club, and that's never ever taken away. You've worked with great people, great managers, great coaches, absolutely everyone that has helped get you over the line. And then obviously the Brighton game is just an absolute celebration. Do you know what I mean? I would think that Walkie and David Linnigan went out after Oxford and didn't get in till we played Brighton. Do you know what I mean? So and again, I see Steve Whitton scored a couple of goals, including the penalty. Steve Whitton was a exceptional sort of person in that team at that time. Never celebrated, always there. Do you know what I mean? Great technical ability, and like I said, 26,000, sort of 803. That must have been, I don't know. I mean, that's before the stands were built, wasn't it? Each end. So that would have been a lot of.
It's the last game with terracing.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of standing. Yeah. Massive crowd, absolute massive crowd. And, you're getting the trophy before the game. It's just absolutely amazing day. And, you've seen the pictures where people are coming on the pitch afterwards and, John Lyall, manager of the year, without a shadow of a doubt, and, champions. That was the thing, not just, not just getting promoted, champions. We were talking about, winning that league because obviously George Burley's team, got promoted from that league and into the Premiership, but not in the top two. Do you know what I mean? Not winning, and that's how hard it is because they're a great team as well. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I was working at the club, following them around as well. Do you know what I mean? And they were a great team, but just that keep going and then finally pulling away and getting a result. So, I was, but yeah, you as a time to get promoted, Premier League just starting, it was just crazy times.
And one of a handful of teams, Ipswich Town teams in history, with an open top bus and a town hall celebration as well. I mean, talk to us about that. It must have been, a brilliant day. Yeah,
it is. It's surreal. There's so many. Everything big that's sort of happened with the football club has always ended up with an open top bus, isn't it? And we've got footage of the 78 team, the 81 team. Do you know what I mean? And for us, it was next. You're going to do something that they've all done, and just being invited and going around the town. It's funny because I talked to we saw Kieran earlier, and I remember Titus telling me that in '92 he's chasing the bus. As a young Ipswich Town fan, everybody in the streets and just going around the town, and then ended up on the town hall steps and up on the balcony and singing great stupid songs. You know what I mean? And just sort of celebrating and it's a moment in time. 11 years, one medal. But people play for 15 years and never get a medal. There's only so many medals that are given out every year. There's only so many things that you can actually win. And if you're in, if you're in the Championship, you ain't going to win the FA Cup. You ain't going to win the League Cup. The only thing you can win is get promoted. And if you're champions, you've been the best team over, a season long with 22, 24 other teams, and you've come out on top. And my medal's in the club. Pat Gobbold has got it. It's in the boardroom on show, which is fantastic. It was the Barclays second division then. Yeah. But yeah, great times.
And as you mentioned, a place in the inaugural Premier League awaits as well. I mean, do the players have any? It's very, looking back on it now, we're talking about Super Leagues the last few months, haven't we? And do players have any understanding of how that Premier League is going to change the English game, or is it just we're in the top flight, let's go for it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that by getting promoted, you knew the Premier League was going to be different. You knew that financially, you knew that Sky were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was all part of it. So to be in there at the start, but the biggest surprise was the standard of the football and the standard of the football players. It was just a massive difference to go up to that level, and then crowds and, you know, everything about it, and so much more coverage. Yeah. You know, they're at every game all of a sudden. I mean, and now, I mean, Sky are at every game in all 4 divisions now. You know, it's just amazing. It was a massive. It probably would have been a massive thing for them to be at every game in the Premier League at that stage. So the media interest and everything. So yeah, it was just amazing to be part of that at that time, and get promoted at that time, be part of that, and then be looking forward to going to play and put yourself up against the best players certainly the best players in the country.
Yep. Phil?
I was going to say, the Premier League, you obviously picked up an injury, didn't you, in the first Premier League season? Which
I did, yeah. Towards the end of the championship season, I had an ankle injury, and I should have had an operation straight away, but operation's always a last resort, and we waited, and so in the end I ended up having an operation, early into the season, so I missed the start, which was frustrating. But it was just being a part of it, having the Sky cameras at the games and up the training ground, and massive difference the Premier League brought to us, and majority of the team stayed.
And I was going to say, I mean, there's possibly a frustrating season for you injury wise, but at the end of the season, we talked before we started recording. I'm posting goal footage on Twitter as much as I can. There's a quality goal. It might be not a game that you look back to fondly against Blackburn, and a really great goal against Forest on the last day of the season as well. So at least something to end the season with some positivity for you. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if you're a midfielder who likes to score goals, there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. So yeah, the Blackburn goal, whilst it didn't affect the game, it was fantastic to hit a strike like that. In an amazing kit, I might add. I'd really like.
I was going to say, have you got it?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't got. I've got some on the wall here, but I've got others sort of that are around. Well, I haven't got that kit. Listen, I look back now, and I wish I kept everything.
Yeah,
I wish. I mean, I'm so lucky to have all this. I had so much. All this during lockdown. All this was in my loft here. And then my son came over, who helped me with I was doing fencing around the house and all that. And while he was up in the loft, it was all framed. It was just not up. So yeah, we put it up on the wall of fame. Do you know what I mean? And then like when Jason came around here, Jason Dazelle recently, and I've got team photos, black and white team photos from different times, and they're just unbelievable memories. Yeah. And then if you are, the program, so the match day program, if you're a first team player, you're going to be on the match day program probably once a season. Bearing in mind the size of the squads and how many home games you've got, they try to feature everyone, and I've got them all. So year after year after year, and I think they're about 10 pence when I first started. You know what I mean? But it's just nice to have and keep and put them up and, have things like that. Very much part of your history. And it's perfect to have them here in my office, which is outside of my house. I don't think I'd have them in my lounge, but it's just nice to have, memories. You come in here and it's about memories, and people come around and, there's stuff in here about my testimonial, and, having spent that many years at the club, it was nice to have something really good to show for it. I mean, absolute confidence in what they do. And you just think, we're at the start of something. Maybe too late this season, but we're start of something.